Got a new video today talking about these fellas, sunchokes. Let's talk more about them. I call them sunchokes, but their most common name is Jerusalem artichokes. They're not from Jerusalem, and they're not an artichoke. Jerusalem artichoke, or I'll just keep calling it a sunchoke from now on. It's a native to North America, and it's actually native to some of the counties around where I live. This is an edible native food that many people can grow. Now, it can be very invasive in nature if not properly taken care of. I have it up against a fence so that it can easily be mowed, so that way it can't leave where I put it. Now, these plants, as you can tell from sunchoke, sunroot, many of these common names that it goes by, it's in the sunflower family. And because of that, it makes very showy flowers through the summer. And then in the fall and spring, you're able to harvest yourself some tubers below the ground. Now, people normally say to wait for them to turn completely black along the stem and let the leaves fall off. They don't have to do that completely. It's just that's when the most energy is put into it, because it's no longer growing. It's all in the root. Now, what you can do with it, you can pickle them, you can boil them, you can roast them, you can turn them into a powder and make them into a flour. So there's many different uses, but there is one side effect that a lot of people don't seem to like about them, which is why they have a nickname, and that nickname is artichokes. They go by that name because of this one thing called inulin, not to be confused with insulin, but inulin. It is something that your body cannot break down, but the microbiology in your gut can, and they actually like it. But if you're not used to consuming things that have inulin, some other things that may have it is asparagus. That's another very common food. But either way, it's hard for your body to digest. So some ways people typically get around it is boiling it, adding lemon. Some people like to lacto-ferment them and make pickles. I've personally boiled them, added lemon, and I plan on trying some more other ways. This is my second season growing them. When I first grew them, I had broken my wrist, and so I was not able to really put as much effort into the plants like I would like to have, but they did great nonetheless. They're very, very easy to grow. You don't even really have to do much. I could harvest everything that's here today, and I'd still have plenty of food, because it would grow next year like no tomorrow. But even then, because I want to get more biomass, which that's another great thing. They can get, well, 6 feet fence. That one's almost 10 feet all the way up there. So they make a lot of biomass. I don't use them anywhere as a natural mulch other than right here. I use the greens and the stems to replenish itself. So that way I don't have to put near as much mulch here each year, which you don't even really need to. I just like doing it because it helps the fertility in the area. And when you have soil like mine, that is, well, it's like concrete. You need to really shovel a long time to dig in it, or you're gonna get a mattock or a pick out to dig in it, because it does not want to budge. So, because of that, I like to put mulch around a lot of my plants to increase the fertility and, bring in more worms, more fungi. I apologize for the wind today. It is a very windy day, but I'm doing this while I got the chance. So what I'm going to do is cut them about 3 feet, and then from there I'm going to start digging along from one side to the other, harvesting them. And I'll show you guys how to harvest them and hold on to them through the winter, even when you have hard freezes that make it so you can't dig in the ground. Because as long as the ground is soft, you can dig these guys up. Another thing you can do with these, if you have animals, you can give them the biomass And you can give them the tubers below the ground. From what I've heard, pigs love them, so that's something you can do. I'm not sure about what other critters, seeing as I don't have any, but if you do, you can possibly experiment with that. These guys also grow great just about most anywhere. I'll have on the screen what zones they do best in, but in general, most people should be able to grow it. This is their second year, so each year you can expect them to just keep expanding, but I'll be showing you also how to go about planting them, whether it's in the spring or in the fall, like it is for me. Now, this is all that's left. All chopped on the ground, and about 3 feet-ish. So from here, I'm gonna go and start digging from this side on over. Now I did this so I know exactly where they're at, because I have a little bit of an empty spot right here. I had a tiny plant right here, but I dug it up just to see if the sunchokes were ready, and they are. Now honestly folks, it's no different to digging up potatoes or sweet potatoes or any other kind of tuber. It's only more prolific. Even if I harvest every last one I see, there will always be something left behind to regrow. Still, I like to leave some of the broken tubers, long strands that never developed, or even the smallest ones behind. It is also probably, in my opinion, one of the easiest crops to grow, as I don't really need to put any effort into it and get a hefty amount of food out of it. Personally, I love them, but I know it can be an acquired taste, or some may not like it at all, and that's understandable. When it's roasted, it kind of reminds me of potato in taste, and I love my potatoes, so that's a win for me. I may love them, but my stomach doesn't, so I have to be careful not to eat too many at once. This may get better over time as my stomach adapts, but who knows, we'll see. The wood chips and fall leaves I used as a mulch also did wonders for the soil, as I barely had to use a shovel to dig them up this year. And I saw plenty of worms, fungi, hyphae, and so on. I'm sure you could even fork the soil like with potatoes and it would do wonders. Though, I'd rather dig with my hands, so I can hopefully not damage them to begin with. Plus, I kind of like getting my hands dirty rather than using tools every time I get the chance, because that's my personal preference. Plus, I don't like having to use tools every single time. It's nice to just, step away from that. In such a small space, I already collected plenty of tubers without doing all too much work. I still have all of this I still need to do. And that's just from right there. And if I wanted to dig a little deeper, I'm sure I could get more. But for something I don't have to really put much effort into, that's a good amount of food. Some of that I'm gonna ferment. Some of it I'm gonna replant, which I'll show you guys shortly. And I might even try to use some to make some natural pesticide. I'll show that possibly in a later video. We'll see. If not this fall, probably next spring. As I had said before, these guys are really easy to plant, so you don't really need to do a whole lot other than plant them about a foot, maybe 2 feet apart, and then from there, plant them about 2 to 4 inches below the ground. They're really simple. And then after that, put a little bit of compost if you want, and then just cover them on up, and call it a day. Just like that. Then water them in just to make sure you get all the air pockets out. Make sure they're watered for like a week, maybe 2, and then they'll be ready. Now for holding onto them through the winter, I used a 5-gallon bucket that is food grade with a gasket on it, and I put about 2 inches of compost mixed with some potting soil to keep them moist through the winter. From there, I started layering them inside of the bucket and making sure they were not touching the walls or each other. After that, I started putting some soil back over them and made sure they were nice and covered, and then from there, I tapped the bucket and knocked it around a little bit to make sure if there was any pockets, it was filled into. And then after putting another couple inches, once I knew they were all settled and there was nothing coming back up, I then started to pat them down and prepare for the next layer. I did that all the way up until I reached the top,
And then once I reach the top, I just put the lid on, and then I'll come back later.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace. Have a good one.